Hello and welcome to this video about SchoolSoft. Today we're going to be looking specifically at the kunskapskrav, the knowledge requirements, and I'm going to be logged in as a kind of fake parent account we have so parents can see how they can look at the knowledge requirements. First of all, you want to be on the start page. When you're on the start page, you can see down the left hand side you have subjects. All the subjects are listed here. Just quickly, I'll say you'll also see on the start page homework, assessments and classwork, and of course news. And I can give you a tip that if you go under school info, you'll be able to see also all of the important dates that are coming up. But if we go back to the start page and go under the subject English, this is the overview that you'll see for the subject. And here you can see homework, assessments, planning, files or links that we recommend, and also the contact details for the teacher. If you go under tasks, you'll be able to see what tasks are coming up for the student. I've created two demonstration tasks here, which I've called demonstration A and B, and we'll be having a look at them later. If you go over to the kunskapsmatris, subject rubric, here you'll be able to see I've filled in a subject rubric for you. This is a fake student that we have on the system. Now when you first look at this knowledge matrix, it can look a little bit confusing, so let me explain what's going on here. Down the left hand side we have abilities, and these are the kunskapskrav. Now each subject, it varies how many kunskapskrav there are. Normally it's between 7 and 14. And for each of these abilities, or kunskapskrav, you have an E, a C, or an A level. So, abilities down the side, and across the top, you have the level. Now, we use three colours on the matrix. We use green, which means the level has been achieved. We use yellow, which means the student is still working at this level. They haven't quite achieved it, but they maybe have shown some parts of it, but they're not quite there yet. We also have red, which means that the student has tried to work with this kunskapskrav, or this ability, but has unfortunately not been able to show this level. If when you look at the bottom half of the matrix there's no colour whatsoever, that just simply means that the teacher or the student has not yet worked with these knowledge requirements, so they wouldn't play any part in any grading at this point. Now before I go any further, I just want to explain something about the matrix. The matrix we're looking at now, the subject matrix, is, if you like, the holistic, the helicopter view of the subject. This is what the teacher uses to set a grade. Now in this case, the student has satisfied all of the E criteria, all of the C criteria, and half of A criteria for 2 kunskapskrav. Now what Skolverket says, students must satisfy all criteria for kunskapskrav to achieve an E. Well, that's been done here. They must do all for C. Well, that's been done as well. When we come up to the A level, the students only really managed to show A level with 2 abilities, 2 knowledge requirements, and is still working with the 2 here. Now in this case, at IS Örebro, we've said if a student can show 50% of the next stage, then we will mark them with either a B or a D. So if this was the end of the term, the teacher, will remember, would only be looking at the knowledge requirements that have been assessed. So we can forget about these ones. We're only looking at these ones here. The teacher in this case would say, yes, the student has achieved E. Yes, the student has achieved C. We're halfway towards A. Therefore, I'm going to be awarding a B grade in English. So that's an important thing to remember about the subject rubric. You may go onto SchoolSoft and you may see there's nothing there under the subject rubric. That's because we're only going to use this when we set a grade, the subject rubric. And that will be either at development talks or at the end of the term. But there's another rubric, and that's called an assessment rubric. And if we go back up to our overview, we can see that we had some assessments here. we can actually go directly under assessments and see them. Here you go, demonstration A. Here you can see that the teacher's left an instruction and also a link, and if I was to click on that link, that would actually take me directly to the original document. That may be a test, or it could be some instructions for a project. Over here you can see show result, and I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to say I'd like to see the assessed abilities. When I click on that, I'm seeing an assessment matrix. Now the first thing you can see is there are only 4 abilities here down the side. That's because the teacher's only connected these specific 4 abilities to this assessment. So it's not like the subject rubric, which had 9 in the case of English. These are just the abilities that the teacher can assess with this assessment. Other than that, it looks exactly the same. We've got E, C and A levels, and we've got the same colours, green and yellow. Now this is a really interesting and very helpful tool for students and parents to look at, because here we can see that with the ability, you can see directly the ability for the student to understand content in clear details, in spoken English, at a comfortable tempo. Then we can see that the student has managed to reach A levels. But if we look, for example, at this last ability, the student can choose texts, we can see that there's still some work to be done here. Now the language that is used in the matrix is not our words. These comes directly from Skolverket's documents. So of course they are, if you like, very pedagogic in their language. But you don't really need to necessarily understand everything about that. If you just want an overview of the matrix, this is why matrices are so good. You can look at the colors. And already here you can see that this is the area where the student needs to develop. Now this can lead to a conversation with the teacher. It can also lead to a conversation at home, and in terms of the student reflection, that the student needs to work with this ability to be able to choose texts. So this is an assessment rubric. And as you can see, I've done another assessment rubric here, and exactly the same happens there. If we click on it and we go to show the results, then we can see they're here. Here's another one. So in this case, the student actually managed to get to A levels in 2 abilities and is now working with A levels, or working at A levels on the other 2 abilities, but is not quite there yet. So again, we can see that this is the area, these 2 abilities here, that we need to be working with. And you'll find your teachers will be more than happy to take a conversation about that at development talks, or if you want to contact them to discuss how exactly a student might want to do that. I just want to show you one more thing, and that's if we want to go back under the Emnes matrix. Remember, this is the big matrix that has all of the goals, all of the abilities on. And here, the different levels. Now, in this overview, we can also choose to see the tasks, and that's if we choose here, Uppgifter, task. If I press show, and then press on show, those 2 tasks that the teacher had marked previously, which were both demonstration assessments, they appear in the rubric. And it's these that the teacher will be using to set a grade. So you can see, for example, for this level, it was quite obvious. The teacher could easily say in the overview that the student has reached A. With this, the student managed first to reach, to work with the level A in this kunskapskrav, but then on a second attempt managed to reach it. So the teacher, with their professional judgment, has said yes again. In this case, on the first 2 assignments, the student worked up to C level and has started working with an A level, and the teacher quite sensibly therefore has just marked that yellow. And again here, when we see on this last kunskapskrav, the teacher is that the first time the student wasn't able to get to achieve C level, the second time they were, and the second time they were working up at A. So the teacher has marked this level green and this level yellow. If I take away these tasks, remember you can click on this to show tasks and then quite simply just press Visa. we're now looking at the matrix that the teacher will use to set a grade. And if this was the end of the term, the student would be receiving a B grade. Now there's one important thing I should mention here. If any of these had been marked red, just one of them, and the student had even A up to here, then the student would be failing the subject. Skolverket has said that all criteria need to be met at any specific level for the student to achieve the grade. So if you ever see red on one of these matrices, it's quite serious. Hopefully, if you're looking at the colours, the reason why the colours are there, matrices are popular all over the world. This isn't something that's just happening in Sweden. They've been used for the last 10 or 15 years in countries from America to Australia to the UK. And the great advantage of them is that they give you a visual perspective so you can see very clearly. In this case, we know that the student would really need to work with these two abilities. And then we read the ability, and hopefully that kickstarts a discussion at home or with the teacher in school. Okay, well, thank you for watching. We hope that that's made the knowledge requirements matrix a little bit easier to understand. And if you have any questions, please contact us.